Welcome back to The Great Conversation. This is episode 8, and we are going to dive into the gods of the Iliad so that you can have a better reading experience, not being confused as to, I thought that goddess or god had this power or strength, and so why are they acting this way? Before we dive in, what are you drinking today, Ben?
I have a Banten green tea. This is from Indonesia, and I actually am able to order from like small farms through a company called Iliad. So it's really cool. I'm a big tea fan, and so this is Banten Green from Indonesia.
Yes, I was never a tea fan until I started dating Ben, and now I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking some organic hibiscus tea with some honey in it. All right, so let's dive in. Ben and I are going to go back and forth the different gods of the Iliad, really the prominent ones that show up over and over again and have a lot of interaction, a lot of maybe manipulation or whatever we want to call it. You can check out some other episodes to see what we think of the gods of the Iliad.
Yes.
But first we're going to really kind of just see what our initial thought was. So I'm going to...
And if we remember them, do we know who they are?
Right. I'm going to throw out a name to Ben, one of the gods or goddesses, and he's going to do the same to me.
Okay.
And what was our initial thought of that god or goddess? And then we'll actually talk about what their strength is. Who is Thetis?
Okay, so Thetis is the mother of Achilles, depending on your edition. His father was Peleus. She, as far as her powers are concerned, I didn't really catch it. There wasn't really any obvious powers that she had or what she controlled. That was the main context that I got.
Right, so Thetis has a pretty small part, but at the same time, she's really a huge contributor to the narrative
because of Achilles.
The Iliad. Yeah. And so Thetis is a sea goddess or a sea nymph. So she's not technically one of the 12 gods of Olympus. She's kind of like underneath Poseidon, or, she's in the sea, but she is a sea goddess. So she did marry a mortal. So she's a goddess and she married a mortal, Peleus, which is Achilles' father. So she did birth Achilles. She loves him. She comes and visits Achilles when he is in distress. And then goes to Zeus and pleads Achilles' case.
Yes.
And that's really what kicks off the whole reigniting of the battle in the Trojan War.
Yeah, she wants him to have honor. And so by getting into the war and pushing the war forward, he has the ability to have honor.
Yeah, and so who is she for then? This is kind of an obvious one. Is she for the Trojans or is she for the Achaeans?
She would be for the Achaeans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it Achaeans? Achaeans? Achaeans?
I say Achaeans.
That's what we've been saying.
Yeah, so we're just going to say whatever comes out of our mouth in the moment and just roll with us. Next, we're going to go with Apollo.
Okay, Apollo. He is right at the beginning. So I remember reading about him, but it was really hard getting into the story at first, just kind of like getting in the mindset of what is
You have to dive
Iliad.
into everything.
Yeah. So there were arrows that he was firing down on the Achaeans.
So he's an archer.
Yeah, so he had a bow and arrow.
Yes.
And there was fire. And
that
so
was
he was
a
burning.
weird start. Yeah. It's everything's all of a sudden everybody's dying and being burned up.
Yes.
By him.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I got. Bow and arrow, fire.
Yeah, so he is the god of archery and disease. He gives a foul pestilence to people and cattle. They perish. So the burning could, in a sense, have been they all got a disease or they had a high fever and it killed them all. I don't know, because I don't know if he was actually putting fire upon them. He's not the god of fire.
Right, and
slightly
historically,
confusing.
yeah. So he spoke in prayer, and Phoebus Apollo heard him and strode down along the pinnacles of Olympus, angered in his heart, carrying across his shoulder the bow and the hooded quiver, and the shafts clashed on the shoulders of the god, walking angrily. He came as night comes down and knelt, then apart and opposite the ships let go an arrow. Terrible was the clash that rose from the bow of silver. First he went after the mules and the circling hounds, then let go a tearing arrow against the men themselves and struck them. The corpse fires burned everywhere and did not stop burning.
So it's almost like he had an arrow tipped with fire, is what it kind of sounds like. But what the result of that was, we have word pictures, but who knows, you know?
And so who is he for?
Oh, that's the question I'm supposed to ask you.
I know.
Who is he for?
He was for the Trojans.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So,
all right,
cool.
So that's Apollo. Mine is Zeus.
Zeus. Oh, come on. That's like low-hanging fruit. He's the god of the heavens. He floats on clouds constantly. He has a lightning bolt. This is all like the cliche pictures that we see. He simply is the god of the heavens, and he has power kind of even to his two other brothers.
So, like you said, sky, weather, law and order, destiny and fate. So who's going to die?
Law and order, that's key. Because he doesn't often, he plays one side sometimes, but then he doesn't, and he's often trying to keep this fair battle.
Right. So
is what it seems
was
like.
he for the Trojans or the Achaeans?
Depended on his mood.
Right. I mean, he's obviously been asked by Thetis to be for Achilles, so he's for Achilles.
Yes.
And this whole battle is ensuing because of Achilles, but then he's also for Hector. He loves Hector, who's on the Trojan side.
Yeah, and then there's this one point where I just read today where one of the people he loves becomes injured. Forgive me of the exact name. And he goes to Hera and says, I want to rescue this person. And she says, but if you rescue him, then all the gods are going to want to rescue their favorites. So he's kind of like stuck in this weird juxtaposition of like, I like this person, but like the war has to be just, and so it's very interesting.
Yeah, so that's Zeus for you.
Yes. Athena, who is your heartthrob.
I
well,
love
not
Athena.
heartthrob, but like your girl.
Yeah, I love
She's
Athena.
your relatable one.
But she is pretty complex because she's very wise, and then you also see her in the war, and she can seem so just wise and gentle, but then she's fierce in battle, and she goes between taking off her dress that she has weaved so carefully with her hands to put on her armor, and then she's back in her beauty clothes.
So what is she then? You just gave away two kind of things. She
is the goddess of wisdom.
Yep.
She's the goddess of war.
Yep.
And of weaving.
Of weaving. She's the goddess of weaving.
Yeah.
Which is great.
So this is spoken to Athena. Go now swiftly to the host of the Achaeans and Trojans and try to make it so that the Trojans are first offenders, to do injury against the oaths to the far-famed Achaeans. And so she gets involved. This is just one example out of many that she is involved in the war, and she is very good at it. And then with the weaving, I do want to read.
This is great. Quick? Of course, yeah.
So with Hera is about to go seduce Zeus and put him to sleep, and she puts on this beautiful dress with this, she had anointed her delicate body, talking about Hera, and combed her hair. Next, with her hands, she arranged the shining and lovely and ambrosial curls along her immortal head, and dressed in an ambrosial robe that Athena had made her carefully smooth and with many figures upon it. So it was woven some sort of tapestry with
like a
figures
kimono, like a sexy kimono going on.
Maybe better than what we would have today.
Okay, not like a Disney kimono and like.
All right, next is Poseidon. Who is he the god of? Poseidon
is the god of the sea. She's much better at this if you cannot tell. God of the sea. He shows up a lot in about book 12 through 17. He starts to interact a lot. He is for the Trojans. Dang it.
Try again.
Yep. So she's better. All right, so take us away.
So Poseidon, he is the brother of Zeus, one of the brothers of Zeus, and he is the god of the sea and earthquakes. He's actually referred to as the earth shaker. So he's also the god of floods, droughts, and horses. Verse 150, so huge was the cry, the powerful earth shaker let go from his lungs, and in the heart of every Achaean implanted great strength to carry the battle on and fight without flinching. And then it continues, and Poseidon is really in this part in book 14, helping the Achaeans really push back the Trojans.
Hera.
Okay, so we just talked about Hera. Her part is kind of confusing, and with Greek mythology, obviously Homer he really takes liberties, I think, with the gods and personifies them differently than what historically they would have been. There's a lot more depth to them. Maybe they seem frivolous, but there is more depth than what there was at the time. So Hera is the queen, so she's married to Zeus. She's also the sister of Zeus. What her powers and strengths are, I really had no idea. I just read about her. Okay, she's married to Zeus. She bickers with Zeus a lot. She is really friends with Athena because they're both rooting for not just the Achaeans, but for Troy to just be utterly defeated.
Yeah, they don't like Troy, for sure.
So is there anything else with Hera?
So she technically is the god of marriage, women, and then the sky and stars.
She's Queen Bee.
Yes, that's a good point.
Aphrodite.
Okay, that's like a low-hanging fruit. She's the goddess of love. She'd be the goddess of sex, and That's basically where I feel like I'm not nailing this. You're just pulling out the stops on me.
Okay, so love, beauty, pleasure, procreation.
Procreation, okay.
These are a little bit more high-level words than just sex.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, there's nowhere in here that says that she should be getting involved in the war, but yet she does. So this love really kind of overtakes her, and she gets involved in the battle when she sees her son being
love
injured.
Is the activator. She's not a goddess of war, but because she's a goddess of love, she's like, I'm in on this. I need to help you.
Right. So she sees that the Achaeans have injured her son, who is immortal. She rushes down into the battle to save him, and she's injured by a mortal. And then she comes back to Olympus injured, and she's kind of mocked. Zeus and Athena really mock her, and Zeus even says to Aphrodite, "No, my child, not for you are the works of warfare. Rather concern yourself only with the lovely secrets of marriage."
Yeah.
So just stick to love, Aphrodite. Stop trying to pretend like you know how to get involved in war. And that's in book 5. But then with the beauty pleasure part, I want to emphasize when Hera is trying to seduce Zeus so that she can really help the Achaeans again, she asks for Aphrodite's help. Hera comes to Aphrodite and says to her, "Then with false lying purpose, the lady Hera answered Aphrodite, 'Give me loveliness and desirability, graces with which you overwhelm mortal men and all the immortals.'" So she really sees, okay, this is Aphrodite's strength, and it's a goddess asking another goddess for help.
So this is kind of an odd moment because they're technically on opposite sides, but it looks like she's helping her.
Right, because Hera is lying to Aphrodite, saying, "Give me this beauty and pleasure so that I can go do something with my family," when her purpose is really to go seduce Zeus, put him to sleep so that she can help the Achaeans. Or so Poseidon can help the Achaeans.
Naughty.
So they're all a little bit naughty.
I would say, okay, so Ares.
Okay, Ares is...
the god of panties.
Yeah, Ares,
There's an underwear brand.
I wonder.
It's American
that's
Eagle,
weird.
I think.
Yeah.
Because he's a god of war, but
Is
he's
it
the god
spelled
of...
the same way?
Yeah, but he's a god of battle lust.
Hey, I'm supposed to be guessing these. Ares is confusing, so thanks. We just learned. Okay, so what is Ares? Because he is a complex character, and to keep him straight, what he's doing is kind of hard to keep track of.
So he's the god of battle lust. He starts out for the Achaeans.
We're going to go to our book 5.
Oh man, that was way off.
And in verse 30, he is still fighting with the Achaeans because at this point, Athena says to him, "Ares, Ares, man-slaughtering, blood-stained stormer of strong walls." That's how Athena addresses Ares. "Shall we not leave the Trojans and Achaeans to struggle after whatever way Zeus, Father, grants glory to either, while we two give ground together and avoid Zeus's anger?" So at this point, they're still on the same team, and she's like, "Let's get out of here. Let's stop helping either, the Achaeans, because I don't want to be reprimanded by our father Zeus."
Yes.
So they get out of there, but then later on, Ares does switch sides to the Trojans. There the goddess of white arms, Hera, stopping her horses, spoke to Zeus, high son of Kronos, and asked him a question. "Father Zeus, are you not angry with Ares for his violent acts, for killing so many and such good Achaean warriors for no reason, and out of due order to grieve me?" Zeus agrees with Hera, sends Athena down into the battle to punish, essentially, Ares and send him back to Olympus. Ares gets back to Olympus and says to Zeus, "Father Zeus, are you not angry looking on these acts of violence? We who are gods forever have to endure the most horrible hurts by each other's hatred as we try to give favor to mortals. It is your fault we fight, since you brought forth this maniac daughter, accursed, whose mind is fixed forever on unjust action," talking about Athena. "For all the rest, as many are gods on Olympus, are obedient to you, and we all have rendered ourselves submissive, yet you say nothing, and you do nothing to check this girl, letting her go free, since yourself you begot this child of perdition." So Ares continues on in his little speech. Then looking at him darkly, Zeus, who gathers the clouds, spoke to him, "Do not sit beside me and whine, you double-faced liar. To me you are most hateful of all gods who hold Olympus. Forever quarreling is dear to your heart, wars and battles. Truly the anger of Hera your mother is grown out of all hand, nor gives ground. And try as I may, I am broken by her arguments. And it is by her impulse, I think, you are suffering all this." Okay, so let's move on to the next one, Hephaestus.
Okay.
This is a hard
crops?
No, and he's not mentioned a lot, so I'm not going to hold this
that was
one against
one of the other
you.
ones that wasn't mentioned was...
Yeah, so Hephaestus is mentioned a few times. He is the god of fire, metalworking, and crafting. So this means that he builds houses, armors, and weapons
That's right.
for the gods and some mortals.
Okay.
So, for example, Achilles' armor was
built by him.
Hephaestus. But my example is that Hera, when she's about to go seduce Zeus, this must be a really big part because there's a lot of examples here.
Yes.
She goes into her chamber and she says that Hephaestus made for me.
Yep.
So he is the god of fire, metalworking, crafting,
So he
et
built
cetera.
her
chamber.
Her chamber.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he is technically for the Achaeans.
Okay.
All right, so let's kind of wrap up with just a few of the other gods of Olympus that are just briefly mentioned through the Iliad. They really don't have big parts, but this way you at least have heard their names and kind of what they're for. So we've got Hades, pretty easy one, especially if you've ever seen Hercules, Disney's
God
Hercules.
of the underworld.
Yeah, the god of the dead.
Yep.
And he is mentioned quite a few times because there's a lot of men dying.
Yes.
Demeter, she is the goddess of agriculture, grain, and harvest. Yeah, so there's a couple of times where she is given praises and thanks for her yield of grain.
Yes.
Hermes is the god of travelers, hospitality, herds, flocks, lots of different things. That's Hermes for you.
Yes.
Artemis is the goddess of hunting, wilderness, wild animals, and then Dionysus, the god of wine, vegetation, pleasure, and festivity.
It's a good god.
Lots of fun stuff
That's
here.
That's a good finisher.
So those are our finishers.
Cheers.
Yeah, I hope this was a fun episode for you. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And also notice the difference in our recollection of the gods. She has a very strong mind to recall like the scenes and where they align. I am lucky if I get through the books and understand the overall concept of book upon book. So no matter where you are in this journey reading the Iliad or the great books of the Western world, take faith because we're here to encourage you through the great books of the Western world. And so join us in the great conversation.
So if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so that you can stay up to date to our next video.
Absolutely. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya. Bye.